What is up, and welcome into the Monday Night Football Bets Show, brought to you by FTNBets.com. Go check it out, man. We got some good stuff cooking over at FTN. It's not just bets. We have daily fantasy. We have season-long fantasy as well. Not just fantasy football. I caught myself. I was about to say fantasy football. Hey, we got fantasy hockey, all right? We got you going over at FTNFantasy.com. All three sites, you can use the promo code RATPACK. Get yourself in on a discount. Of course, we're going to break down some of the information you get over at FTNBets.com today. We'll break down this Monday Night Football contest with Seattle facing off against New Orleans. Not exactly at full strength, obviously, with no Russell Wilson out there. But break down the game where I have it projected. It's actually pretty close to the line right now. Yesterday, though, I tell you what, man, lots of unders were in play. I really thought that New England game was going to be an under. That was the only one I was off on. But otherwise, lots of unders in play here for week 7, which was good. Of course, not everything good coming out of yesterday. Just taking a quick peek at some of the news. Nothing big breaking in terms of injuries, but some minor injuries. Miles Sanders dinged up, obviously Patrick Mahomes. And what the heck happened with the Kansas City Chiefs? I have no idea what's going on here, but the Titans are obviously for real. They are rolling. And the Chiefs are backsliding after yesterday's contest. Hey, fantasy football-wise, I know if you're watching this, you probably play fantasy football as well as dabble in the world of betting. I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. It's time to buy low on Patrick Mahomes. Anytime guys like this come off of lackluster performance, try and buy low before your trade deadline rolls around. Anyway, let's take a peek at tonight's action. And don't forget, on Friday, I will be back, same time, 2 o'clock Eastern, for JR Weekly. It's kind of a sports betting and fantasy football show where I go through every game. I give you player props that I like and a little bit of insight into these matchups for fantasy football purposes as well. But tonight's game, current line, I'm seeing -4 for New Orleans, over under 41.5. That puts us at an implied point total of 22.75 for the Saints to 18.75 for Seattle. I have this slightly under. I don't think this is enough to play right now. I have it at a 40.2 combined point total based on my projections. Of course, you can get the projections over at FTNBets.com. Slight edge. It's really a no play for me. The moral of the story is it's obviously not expected to be a high-scoring affair, and it would be a little bit surprising if this was a high-scoring affair, given you have Geno Smith under center. You have the Saints' run defense, one of the best run defenses in the NFL. You have a pretty good secondary there as well. And then on the Seattle side, I mean, they're going up against a New Orleans offense that doesn't throw the ball a lot. They've really kept the reins on Jameis Winston. I mean, can you blame them? They run the ball a lot with Alvin Kamara, and that eats up the clock. So I buy in on this, and I don't think this is a play. My spread for this game right now, I have the Saints giving 3. So if anything, maybe you look at Seattle to cover, but I don't like that play either. So those are no plays for me. My applied point total, 21.8 to 18.7, with New Orleans taking the win here. And I don't think there's enough appeal, honestly, to the money line as well. If the money line was something like -125 to -140, I'd be interested, but I'm not seeing that anywhere right now. The money line is a lot higher than that. Let's see, -200 right now on DraftKings. Just not enough appeal there. It's +170 for New Orleans. I actually have this I have it at -160, +125. But either way, not going to make any of those plays. So we're staying away from that. And honestly, this is not the most appealing game for player prop purposes. It's not like we're going to have 25 different bets in. But there are some bets that are appealing here. And just a general lay of the land for Seattle. Obviously, Russell Wilson is not back. He is on injured reserve. And what I'm hearing is the earliest he'll likely be back under center for Seattle is week 11. So it's a little bit of time with Geno Smith. Now, it's not a complete disaster. It's not as if they're starting Ben DiNucci, and I'm sorry, Ben DiNucci, but we saw how that went for Dallas last year. It's not going to be a complete disaster. Geno's a capable backup quarterback, but he is a backup quarterback. So the offense does not run the same with him under center. For DK Metcalf's sake, could be worse. He looks at DK Metcalf a lot since he came in, replaced Russell Wilson, and then last week as well. He does look at him a lot. As for Tyler Lockett, though, really Lockett feeds off of that beautiful deep ball from Russell Wilson at times. He feeds off the target volume that you're just simply not going to get with Geno Smith under center. So it's a bigger hit for Lockett than it is for DK Metcalf. I know a lot of people might be using these guys for fantasy football purposes tonight, and you might have to. I mean, hey, you're down to the end of the line here for week 7, so you might have to. I don't want to go into the Freddie Swain territory, though, especially when his player prop line is only 15.5 receiving yards. As for the run game, let me toss this out there before I dive in. I have 2 props for the Seahawks. I'll have 3 for New Orleans. Alex Collins is playing. He's healthy enough to play. I mean, he's not healthy, but he's healthy enough to play. Rashad Penny was activated off of the injured reserve list. So what do we expect here? And I honestly wish I could say, oh, it's going to be all Alex Collins and blah, blah, blah. I don't freaking know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I'm not Pete Carroll. I don't know. Here's what I do know. Heading into the season, would any of us out there have said Alex Collins is ahead of Rashad Penny on the depth chart? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't think anybody would have said that. So here we are now 7 weeks into the season. Rashad Penny coming off of injured reserve. And Alex Collins coming off a solid performance statistically last week. But ultimately, has he been setting the world on fire for football purposes? No, not necessarily. Not bad, but not great either. Rashad Penny, though. In the NFL, coaches say this over and over and over again. In most instances, I can't say always, players do not lose their jobs due to injury. Has Rashad Penny lost his job? I don't know. Again, I have no clue. All I know is that he was ahead of him. He's coming down from injury, and usually players don't lose their job. But we also know that Pete Carroll has, he's been about as mean as Pete Carroll can be. And Pete Carroll's not a mean guy. He's a very positive kumbaya king. But he did say this is a crucial year for Rashad Penny. He did point out the injuries. This was heading into the season, so you could imagine if a player doesn't stay healthy, he could get in the doghouse. I honestly don't know. Would it shock me if it's Rashad Penny in the league tonight? Not at all. But I do think it is Alex Collins in the league. So don't freak out if you have Alex Collins for fantasy purposes. I ranked him as a flex option for that reason. But a lot of balls in the air, a lot of moving parts here in that backfield, especially with Chris Carson now also on injured reserve. So a bit of a mess. And, actually, let's start with Alex Collins then. As I said, I do think he's going to be the lead back in this one, but I would not be surprised if Rashad Penny was also heavily used. That being said, this is a game where Seattle should likely play from behind, which does favor the passing game for Seattle, even if it's not in the first half and the second half. Alex Collins, right now, his line on DraftKings Sportsbook is 6.5 receiving yards, which this means essentially, now I realize he didn't get over this line with just one catch last week, but if you think he has essentially one catch, the over is very much in play. It's minus 110. Not juiced on either side. It might be juiced to the under slightly here on this line. Regardless, it is minus 120. So regardless, though, if you think he has one catch, he gets the over here. I think he has more than one catch. I'm projecting him at over one catch. I don't know if it's 2, but I do think there's a really strong chance he has that one catch and catches that ball for, I don't care, 7 yards. He gets the over on that one. Game script should favor it. He has been involved in the passing game since being really thrown into the mix a couple weeks ago. So that one is a strong play for me tonight. Alex Collins over 6.5 receiving yards. And I just mentioned the game script. Okay, well, if you think like I do that for a bulk of this game, Seattle is going to be playing from behind, then Geno Smith is going to have to throw the football a little bit. Right now, the passing attempts line that I'm seeing is 30.5, and that is standard across the industry. I feel like he goes over this one based on what we've seen. I mean, we have recent precedent here. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he threw 32 times. And again, he doesn't need to throw 50 times you don't win any more money if he throws 50 times as he does 31 times. It does not matter how high you go over. I do think the over's in play. I think this is something like last week, 32, 33 passing attempts, Geno doesn't put up major numbers, but he does enough with his arm there to get us the over. And I'm seeing that minus 115 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, not juiced either side. Again, it's a fairly standard line, so you might want to shop around a little bit. We do have a great tool for you over at ftnbets.com that you can use to shop around. It's called the Prop Shop, very original name. But it is the Google of sports betting. If you wanted to see all of Geno Smith's lines for tonight, boom, Geno Smith, type it in, bang, see all Geno Smith's lines, boom, see Geno Smith's passing attempts at 30.5, and bang, take the over. Well, that's what I'm doing, at least. That's exactly how I prepared for today. Taking the over there. Nice and easy. Game script should be very favorable. So let's go to the other side of this contest. What have we seen out of the New Orleans Saints so far this season? I smile because it's been a wild ride. This is a team that puts up major points in a hurry. They don't have long sustained drives. They don't have, Jameis Winston under center, the field general just marching the troops down. No, it's not that. It's a lot of Alvin Kamara, which is great. One of the best running backs in the NFL. They've been leaning on him heavily, and probably even more heavily than we've ever seen, because there's pretty much nothing else there other than Taysom Hill, who is not going to play because he's still in the concussion protocol after that brutal hit back in week 5. That's a little concerning. This is 2 weeks since that concussion. But regardless, no Taysom Hill out there. So they're going to lean on Alvin Kamara. But at the same time, Jameis does throw the ball downfield. He occasionally will throw the ball just up into the air like he did against the Patriots and hope that somebody comes down with it like Marquez Callaway, which kind of seems to be happening. Callaway is a pretty skilled receiver, and it does look like he'll have some company finally with Traquan Smith coming off of injured reserve. At the same time, Michael Thomas, I don't know. I have no clue when he's coming off of the PUP. And I think if you play fantasy football, you drafted him because you know the name very well and you know the production in 2019 very well. But since then, it's been a series of disappointments for fantasy purposes. Last year was a disappointment for a couple different reasons. The injury was the big one. This year, waits to have surgery, then gets put on PUP. And also there's some weird stuff, the murkiness surrounding his future with the team. And now we just simply don't know when he's coming off of PUP. We're being told by a couple different NFL insiders it's still going to be a couple weeks. So we have no clue. So for now, Marquez Callaway in the lead. And coming off a pretty solid outing right before the bye, is actually surging a little bit here for Jameis Winston. And, I want to go in key on Jameis Winston first and foremost. I don't care if he tosses the ball up into the air and, honestly has his eyes closed, because I really think he had his eyes closed on that Hail Mary touchdown that he had before the bye. But I am going to look at the touchdown productivity. He has topped, he's had at least 2 touchdowns in 3 of 5 games this season. We know that there's massive potential, even though he's not throwing the ball a lot, just 23.5 passing attempts per game, which I do think is very much by design for Sean Payton. Cover up the deficiencies. Cover up Jameis Winston. Yes, he can throw the ball vertically. Yes, he does some of that stuff, but he also, he's a 30-30 club guy. 30 touchdowns, 30 picks in a single season. Not easy to do, and you want to cover that up. But standard passing touchdown line, 1.5. Almost every quarterback hits that every single week. Plus 140 on the over at DraftKings. Now, I know what DraftKings is saying with this line. They're saying Kamara, and more Kamara. But with Jameis Winston's production, and you can throw the ball a little bit on this Seattle secondary on DJ Reed Jr. You can throw the ball a little bit. The fact that I'm getting plus odds here is what makes this enticing. Now, I ordinarily stay away from passing touchdown props unless it's a favorable situation like this, because here's the deal. If I get plus 140, I do not have to hit this bet as many times in the long term as I would if it was a standard minus 110, minus 115 to be profitable, simply put. So at plus 140, give me the over on that. Like I said, he's topped this line in 3 of 5 games this season. I definitely don't love Jameis Winston tonight, but I'm in on this play. I'll be rooting for Jameis on the over 1.5 passing touchdowns. As I'm diving into these two, this is just a friendly reminder. Don't just play these. If you come on here, you play all these. Oh, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go like 2 of 5, right? And then you're going to come to me on Twitter. You're going to be like, nice job, Ratcliffe. And then I'll block you and then blah, 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 like it always goes. Go to ftnbets.com. We have more plays than just these 5. This is just a taste, right? This is just, I'm like outside of the store giving you free samples right here. You got to go to the site, though, to get the rest. And there's so many more plays. Our guys have been killing it. Matt Friedman killing it. Elliot Chris killing it. Kevin Adams killing it. All these guys are killing it. So just go and tail them. And that's what I do in sports that I don't follow, like NHL. I'll just play what Chris Meany says. Whatever Chris Meany says, I play in NHL. That's what we do. So anyway, back over here. I got 2 more player props for you for this one. Let's key in on Alvin Kamara. As I said, I look at the rushing attempts line of 22.5. I think I've seen this at 23.5 elsewhere too, but that's a big line. And you know what? It's a no play for me because I do think it's very much in play. He has topped that line in 2 of his last 3 games. They're going to lean on Alvin Kamara in the run game. You can run on Seattle. We saw Najee Harris do that right before the bye as well. So where I want to go to, especially if I do think like I do that this team is going to be playing from the lead, I want to go to his receiving yards prop. Right now, FanDuel has it at 33.5, minus 110 on either side of this thing. And it's an under. It's an under for me. He's only been over this line once this season. That was, of course, right before the bye. But otherwise, we've had some very lackluster performances out of Kamara in the receiving game. If you have him on your fantasy squads, you know what I'm saying. There was a point where people were very concerned by his usage in the passing game. But I'm not overly concerned there. I'm just trying to say, game script A, that's the first thing. If you do think they play from the lead, that means lots of Kamara on the ground. They don't have to dink and dunk to him in the passing game. Secondly, dink and dunk to him in the passing game is not something that Jameis Winston is particularly strong at. He's a guy who obviously throughout the course of his career looks vertically. That's Jameis' first, second, third look is as far downfield as I could possibly throw the ball, right? He doesn't typically check down, which is good and bad for Jameis from a football standpoint. But the likelihood that he's going to be looking to Kamara heavily tonight, I just don't see it based on performance, based on game script. So while the line it's not an astronomical line, I do think it's a tad high. I think this line, if it was, say, 29.5, especially 28.5, that'd be a hard one for me. It would be a complete no play, but giving me those extra 4 or 5 yards, I'll take the under on this one. And again, hey, I don't have to hammer the under. I don't have to have him with 0 receiving yards. If he has 31 or 32 or even 33, I still get that under. It's the beauty of the player props. All right, let's round it out here. Last one for you on the show today. The aforementioned Marquez Callaway. Hey, man, opportunity knocked, and he answered the door. He showed up this season. While it hasn't been an astronomical, meteoric rise for Marquez Callaway, he's doing a pretty nice job. And he's coming off a very strong performance right before the bye, which was his best statistical performance of the season, had 85 receiving yards in that game, had 8 targets in that game. Targets are opportunity. And again, while I do think that Seattle is going to be playing from behind, New Orleans has the lead. That's the game script I'm expecting. I also am going to acknowledge Jameis is not throwing the ball 4 times. He's going to throw probably close to his average, 23, 24, 25 times. How many of those targets go to Callaway? I think we're going to see Callaway in the 6, 7, 8 target range. If he is in that range, I got to key in on his receiving yards. 42.5 receiving yards right now on FanDuel, and that's minus 110 on the over for that line. He's topped the line in each of his last 2, 74 and 85 in weeks 4 and 5. In week 3, he had 41, so he was right there as well. Again, that wouldn't have won the bet, but the point being, the line, I think, is a tad low, given the trajectory of Callaway. I think this line is perfectly appropriate for earlier in the season. It's perfectly appropriate for week 4, or possibly even week 5 if you thought week 4 was a bit of a fluke. But when you see this back-to-back games, it's something we definitely got to take advantage of. Now, I don't think this is another blow-up game for Callaway, but I do think, this line was more like 50.5, 51.5. It'd be harder to play. Give me those 8 extra, 9 extra yards. I'm going to take the over on that every time. So there you go. Geno Smith over 30.5 passing attempts. Alex Collins over 6.5 receiving yards. Jameis, only because it's plus 140, over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Kamara under 33.5 receiving yards. And Marquez Callaway over 42.5 receiving yards. Remember, FTNbets.com, the prop shop. You can search out, hey, if you want to see all of Callaway's lines. Sometimes I like to pair it up, maybe double dip on some receptions as well. Or if you want to see which books have the best lines, the best odds, the prop shop, it's a free tool that you can check out if you want to get behind the paywall. Check out my projections. Check out Kyle Murray's projections, and not just his projections for NFL. He's got you covered NBA-wise as well if you're dabbling there. Love me some NBA player props. Lots of potential, man. Love those NBA player props. Get behind that paywall. Use a promo code RADPACK. Get yourself a discount at any one of our 3 sites. And remember, you're following along with us as well, hopefully, on social media, the entire FTN network. So FTN Bets, FTN Fantasy, FTN Daily on Twitter. And I'm at Jeff Ratcliffe on Twitter. Also, Friday, JR Weekly. Again, we're going to tour the entire NFL. We have only 2 teams on bye this week coming up, which is good. We'll tour the entire NFL. We'll break down every game, give you some fantasy nuggets, give you a player prop as well. If you're not dabbling in the world of player props and you're a fantasy person, what are you waiting for? You already know the players. You get the idea. It's pretty darn simple, and you're not playing against your opponents in your league. You're not playing against 1,000 or a million other lineups in DFS. You're just playing against the house, and honestly, I think we have an advantage against the house when it comes to player props. Not talking about against the spread. People are like, oh, well, you games against the spread. Yeah, well, they're tough, but we're doing good with those as well. And over-unders, man, that's my wheelhouse. Love me some over-unders. Anyway, go check those out over at FTNbets.com, and I will be back on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern right here where you're watching. Leave some comments, like, subscribe, all that on YouTube, and I'll catch you on the flip side. I'm Jeff Ratcliffe, and I'm out.